Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm just going to be doing a bit of work on a track that is for a production music library for a forthcoming album, and the track is sort of aimed loosely at true crime or sort of documentary underscoring, and the jumping off point was to use vocal samples in a glitched up sort of way, in combination with some drones and some percussive elements to create some atmosphere that could then go underneath a TV show. So I'm pretty far into the process at this point, but the stage I'm at now is I'd like to basically decide on the things that I'm going to do to finish off the track and just share this particular part of the process with you. I'm just going to leave the camera on for, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours just to give you a little bit of insight. So what I quite often like to do is have a notepad up at this stage and just have a listen through to the track, make a note of changes that I'm sure that I want to make. Basically, I'm thinking, what would it take for me to just feel like I've done all of the obvious stuff, and the track is in a relatively presentable state, and what are the things that just jump out to me as most in need of attention or fixing or refinement? I think I already know that the ending isn't very good in this particular one, so I imagine that's where I'll start. But I'm just going to have a play through the track to begin with. I've got a little bit of a clip from a TV show up here, which I was using as inspiration. Yeah, so the first and most important things I think are those two bits where it drops out and comes back in. I need to refine those, and then the ending was kind of lame, as I knew it would be. I just want to create a bit more of a build at the end. Apart from that, I think I'll just do some general track organization, kind of tie up any loose ends that I come across, make sure that I'm really clear in my head about what each part is designed to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is, you can see it's very messy, this project. I'm just going to go through and delete any tracks that I've muted. I'm just going to commit to leaving what's there and deleting what's been muted and removing any redundant tracks, clear up a bit of the mess in my project so far. Originally I had some more stringy elements like this, but I found that it was starting to detract from the overall vibe. It was like pulling it into a more film scorey direction, which felt like it was more interesting to leave it as this sound world of electronic noises and beats and stuff. So that felt like a more interesting approach to me. Something that will happen is I'll strip out instruments fairly late into the process, and then by doing that I'll discover what the most interesting elements are and help sort of refine the identity of the track a little bit. Purple's all voice, little track stack. Bass can go with the bass. Kind of go with these in orange. That's a nice little live drum element that I added, which is it's this drum here, which you might have seen before. It's quite nice having a real drum, especially for that kind of high-end complexity, as in high frequency area complexity that you get. I was using broomsticks, so sort of quite soft brushy sticks, and that was helping me generate a little bit of extra detail in that percussion part overall. If we just listen to the percussion on its own, quite happy with where that's sounding. So there's a body to the sound, but there's also a kind of tickiness to the sound, and the tickiness, I really like the fact that that's a real recorded sound, because it just has so much more interest and complexity. Option Command P brings up the notepad. I think what I meant by sub-hit refinement is just this area feels a bit light on detail in the percussion part here. It just feels quite bare bones, which is okay, but I'd quite like to just create some sort of change here. I might change the tone, just EQ this a bit, maybe. Make it more distant and just a bit different to the previous hits. And maybe add some little filler note. I'm almost hearing like a really simple quarter note echo. That's a good start. I kind of want something in that gap a little bit. Might turn that hit up a little bit as well, these little reverby snare things. In fact, rather than using automation, I like to use automation kind of almost as a bit of a last resort. I might see if it makes more sense to just create a duplicate track and just change the gain here. I might do a kind of manual delay. So I'll do a little cross rhythm here. Right now that sounds a bit machine gunny because it's just the same sample going over and over again. So one thing I could do is just modulate the EQ or the filter a little bit in real time as it's playing. I might try that. So I'm quite tempted to try this process. So use a modulator and assign the LFO to the pitch tuning knob, maybe. Could that work? No, it didn't pick up that. Okay, let's try maybe adding an alter boy. Okay, that's modulating that now. Well, that's quite interesting. I'm liking that. the rhythm doesn't feel quite precise there. I might just bounce it in place and nudge it around a little bit. See what that sounds like. Or even just like quantize it a bit. Oh, it's because maybe one of the other parts isn't quite on the grid. This one. So there's not a lot giving the pulse away right now. So it might be, if I am going to have that complicated rhythm in the background, I might have to anchor the rhythm a bit more. I don't know. Maybe I could add more of these kick drum type elements. Double the rhythm of that, potentially. Could try panning this. Quite like that, bit of verb. And then I think I'm going to add a little bit of a sweep, white noise sweep, just into that stop. So to do that, I'm going to use my lovely Moog. A bit of drive. And a bit of release. Maybe something like that. Maybe. It felt a little bit much, but I could just drop it down in the mix. By the way, right now I'm using a controller to automate the, or not automate, just to control the gain there. So if it looks like I'm doing nothing, but things are changing, that's why. A bit more of a swell in the bass, I think, is probably necessary as well, isn't it? Something a bit more decisive. Brings it into focus a little bit. Add a little bit of a reverb tail to that, perhaps. This is something I do quite a lot, is just bring in a reverb right at the tail end of a note, rather than having the reverb on the whole time, just automating in the mix right at the end of a swell like that to give it some extra decay without affecting the earlier part of the sound. I kind of want to keep it on the subtle side and just build on the sounds that are already there and present. And I quite like this understated feel. Here I feel an urge to double this sound with maybe a string line or something, or just a pad to kind of keep that idea going. Yeah, something like that. Maybe here it drops out. Maybe we lose this. Then it feels like business time. And then it can be allowed to return here, perhaps. bring in the string again here. Maybe that boom we also support with some strings. Because then I feel like I'm trying to make this track gradually unfold, you know, so adding some subtly new elements as each repetition goes by. Maybe an octave lower actually would be better. That is on the subtle side. I like the idea of maybe pushing into a distortion. Maybe try driving that quite hard. Yeah. That's cool. A little bit of crunch. Bit of reverb. Or actually, maybe echo would be cleaner. So that's something that I've learned, you know, is oftentimes what I want from a reverb in my head is actually just to lengthen the sound. In that kind of scenario, using an echo or a delay set to quite a low value can be more effective. You almost don't hear it as a delay, you just hear it as a stretching out of the sound. And because this is quite percussive, you don't hear the transient on the repetitions very much, especially because this is already quite a slow attack on the sound. And the whole thing just lasts a lot longer and feels a lot fuller, without affecting the kind of tonality of the sound in the way that it would if you just added a massive reverb. Right, we've got to do something about that ending, but I'm going to have lunch first. So, see you after the break. Okay, we're back. So it's all about these last two bars, I think. So I'm just going to remove the current percussion there. Bit scrappy. I'm going to use the brush tool, I think. Where's that again? Here. I'm going to actually duplicate that track and shorten the length of those. So you get even more space between each note. Yeah, some big percussion hits. Maybe I can take this thing that we created earlier. I always like to build from things that already exist in the track, if possible. Not as a rule or anything, but just it kind of ends up making everything feel a bit more coherent. Especially with a track like this, which is quite sound design heavy. That's cool. I feel I just want a kind of trailery hit to introduce this section. It's one of my go-tos. It's slightly off-center. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, I definitely want to create some contrast between those three hits. So first thing I'm going to do is one of these. Reduce the release a little bit. Yeah, I like that as the meat of the sound, and then I might add something, layer something to that. Take some top end off. Maybe I can open up this string sound, or maybe even use this distorted one. Open up that. So again, just thinking about colours that I've already established. Quite like that chord. Somebody wants to tell me what that chord is. Good start. Bounce that in place. I can imagine combining that with white noise again. Making my own riser, basically. I quite like how this is working here. It's just a white noise riser that I've recorded on my Moog. Sounds like this if I just play it by itself. And I've chopped the sample, and then I've treated the end of the sample with an EQ that looks like this, and a tremolo and a reverb, and together they sound like this. So there's a contrast in terms of the frequency balance of the hit, but it still kind of feels like part of the same sound in a way. I mean, it's a little bit far now, but it's got a real simplicity to it, which I like. In context, it sounds like this. Yeah, so right now the main thing missing is bass. I think that kind of fits with the glitchy vibe. I'm going to add my velocity information manually, as I like to do for things like that. It's just so it's more precise. Oops, and I've over-quantized there. By the way, I have 16th note quantize on a key command, which is Control-Shift-Q, and I have 8th note quantize as another key command, which is Shift-Q. I just quite like that as a way of quickly quantizing stuff. Cool, I'm definitely going to enhance that sense of rise and crescendo by adding some volume automation. See how that sounds? I might play with the release time a little bit. So enable host automation. Now that hit is still a bit lame, isn't it? Maybe we replace it with just more of a subby hit. Like that one. It's nice and hollow. Might not be quite the right tone, as in the pitch. By the way, this is Atlantica. Oh no, it's not. It's Evolution by Keep Forest samples. I highly recommend for trailery stuff. What key are we in? E, I think. Oof, that's very low. Oh, blimey. I can feel my sub rattling. That might be all it needs. Now let's just return to this stringy idea from earlier. I quite like it. I think it just needs to be a bit quieter. And maybe move a bit. Where's that ending up? It ends up on the left side, which I don't really like. Maybe I'll just actually do some panning automation instead. Assign this to a knob. I like the idea of maybe, and this is, you know, getting a little bit tunnel vision here, but I might try on the very ending adding a little bit of like a stutter or a gate kind of effect. Like a mono tremolo, I guess it would be. Maybe something like that. Oops, missed it. Kind of cool. What else have I got on my notes? I'm a little unsure about this bass part. I'm wondering if it should be more of a decaying bass. Whether it be more like doom, doom, rather than doom, doom. Possibly. You know, more of one of those, like a kind of a... Ooh, I like that. Feels nice. Just feels a bit more organic. Now what am I going to do here? I could put a suck. Maybe this thing could be reversed, I don't know. As a starting point. Reverse. Turn it up a bit. Maybe some ticking. I have the perfect thing. Clocks. From Lightning X3M. Great instrument. It's a little bit obvious maybe, but it kind of works at a low volume. I could maybe add an extra layer to it. Maybe just to make it even more subtle, I'll do a little filter sweep on it. I love having these assigned to physical controllers, by the way. That's why it's moving by itself, because I have it on a knob. Yeah, that's nice. Don't know, it's a little bit foreign to the track because I haven't really referenced it elsewhere. I don't know, I'm in two minds about that. Maybe I could add a tick to this hi-hat part. That might feel like it would justify the presence of those ticks a bit more. Oh yeah, that feels like it wants a hit there. Just want to bury this glitch slightly so it doesn't jump out too much. So what I'm trying to do here is just make these a little bit more musical, these glitches. like that could end slightly later. So the way that I created these was using Stutter Edit by Isotope and kind of playing around with presets and then bouncing down the results. But they're a bit imprecise, so I like to kind of shape them manually using audio editing. 2, 3, 4. Do one of those stretch out effects. You know, where you go like this, and then you go like this, and then you go like this. And it sounds like this. Maybe exaggerate it with a bit of tone shaping, EQ. That's kind of cool. Do something like that. Fun. I feel like that bup 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 kind of wants to bounce around the ears a bit. Shameless. I think just keeping it in check with volume is nice. Just kind of keeping everything ticking away. Let's have a little listen through from the start. Cool. So I think there's still definitely some work to do. I think I'm going to focus on making everything really rhythmically precise, because the sounds themselves, the harmonies, the melodies, the fragments of little riffs and glitchy beats and stuff, they're all quite unfriendly or sort of like left field, a little bit kind of hard to understand, whereas I think the rhythm is the thing that's kind of glues it all together, if you like. I guess that's my sense, is that the way to make this even more accessible and even more understandable to the listener is going to be to make sure that the rhythm is really grooving as much as possible. Everything feels tight and on the grid, or if not on the grid, then just kind of intentional. Definitely feel like I've made a little bit of progress and addressed some of my points that I jotted down at the start of the session. So yeah, there you have it, a little insight into my creative process kind of midway through, or towards the end, I guess, of writing a track. This one's, as I mentioned, for a production music library, so sort of working within the constraints of trying to create something that is going to be useful for editors and TV producers, but communicating something very directly, something very emotional, hopefully. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks very much for your attention, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.